Okay, here we go. Picking up with the ambassador. Route. Right, so we're on chapter 2 of the ambassador route. We finished chapter 1 of each of the routes. Right, so we went to a little thing in town the day before, and while we were there, Lucian invited us to the jousting tournament that's coming up. More to people watch the nobles than the actual jousting. Sorry, I started late because I was doing stuff for my sibling because they've been in the hospital and they came home, so we're still trying to adjust for the changes that they need to have happen. So my brain is kind of all over the place, and I've been off my meds, and it's not a good thing. Luckily, I'm just on one at the moment. Anyway, so, ambassador. Male ambassador, for the people who aren't aware, named Rahim Kadir. No, not Kadir, Kadir. Rahim means kind and compassionate. Kadir means capable and powerful. The knight and the nomad have the same last name, different first names. So, helps if I get myself situated here as well. So let's go ahead and load it up. You can see these are my other playthroughs that I did on my own. Here we go. And it's hot. That is not helping. I turned up the music and I need to turn it back down. I was replaying some of my other playthroughs, but I didn't have my headphones in, so I had to turn up the music, so now I need to turn it back down. Okay, here we go. So, starting chapter 2. This is the ambassador's bedroom. We can see the seal for Novus, which it looks like it's a sun and moon with stars. And I believe the colors are blue and gold, or maybe navy. Feel free to add comments in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on that. Okay, here we go. I've come to learn to regret my newfound credibility. It's as if the council decided to put aside the assassination attempts collectively and business resumes as usual, which means letters begin to arrive on my desk. Most of them are relevant, thankfully. Queries on trading and traveling policies, petitions to expedite certain goods that don't need expediting, questions about neighbors who straddle our territories, requests for letters of introduction to Librian nobles and Fey lords alike. The rest, you do have to commend these nobles for their boldness. To what? Encourage them? That's the absolute bloody last thing I need right now. Cedric smirks, but there's a glimpse of sympathy in his eyes. It does take a certain kind of person to offer you a choice between her 3 children. Oh ho ho! That's what they're talking about. And not only that, but I'm sure she'll only be too happy if I decide to take all 3. Look at this vulture's letter. She thinks we indulge in polygamy. I toss the letter aside, along with a stack of other equally irrelevant correspondences. There they will sit until I throw them into the fireplace, which is currently just a little too far away. So indulge in polygamy. That is insulting. As if it's something to be indulged in. Ugh. No respect at all. So we have 3 choices. I miss not having so much paperwork. I wish I wasn't so used to this. It's introduced me to more people. The last one is very optimistic. I have never taken it, so I will go ahead and pick that one. On the bright side, it's introduced me to many, many people of all stations and positions in this castle I wouldn't otherwise have known. I pick up a few of the discarded letters and scan them again for amusement's sake. Do you think this Lady Thistle really believed her letter sprayed with aphrodisiac perfume would make it past you? Oh, I sure hope not, but it's safer that she underestimates the security measures than overestimates them. Is this true? Is she actually someone important? In the grand scheme of things, I mean. And what about this Sir Timothy? Who is Sir Timothy? You'll see him at that jousting tournament, I'm sure. He picks up the teapot, probably to refill my cup, and I wave a hand to stop him. You aren't my maid, Sir Cedric. Leave it. Thank you for your consideration, my liege. He pours the tea into the second empty cup, customarily included with my breakfast, in case of guests, and picks it up. And helps himself to the last orange scone, too, the brat. I roll my eyes. Why do I even worry? I honestly don't know, but it's one of your most endearing traits. Cedric winks at me and moves away, making himself comfortable in a nearby chair. You have been cooped up in here an awfully long time. If my liege wants to, say, take a walk around town, then I would say that is a very healthy thing to do. I squint at him. Cedric isn't meeting my eye, but I know that means he wants to go around town. Snooping on the locals again, probably. Doesn't sound like a bad idea. The break, that is, not the snooping. I push my work aside and slowly rise from my desk, wincing at how my bones crack. How I wish I inherited my fey relative's eternally sprightly joints. Yes, that is, for people who aren't aware, you have the option of basically being half fey. So of course I took it. Because why not? Very well, prepare the horses. I want... What do I want? A drink, first and foremost. Somewhere people won't care who I am. That tavern you chased the old knight commander into then. Isn't that a little far? We need to be back before they leave for the jousting tournament. The very jousting tournament Lucian so graciously promised to invite me to, which is about the only exciting thing I've had to look forward to in the last few days. So it's been a few days since the last chapter. Good to know. That aside, to arrive late and delay everyone's departure would be something not even a demon would be amused with, I'm sure. Cedric waves his hand in a so-so gesture, which fills me with such confidence. I will personally evict you when it's time if you would like. Must you use evict? Would you like me to bend down and whisper furtively in your ear in front of God know how many inhibiting criminals and possibly in front of that knight commander as well instead? I love that he teases you. I love this relationship that we see between the two. I almost wish that you could romance him, but that's really iffy because you're the ambassador and he's your knight. So that's taking things a little too far, I think. Besides, he finds someone else. And I'm happy with who he finds. That's all good. The cheek of you, Sir Cedric. I just love the friendship. So we'll leave it at friendship, I like that. Just like I'm happy with August and Piper just being friends. I know some people kind of wish there was more, and I'm like, no. I like August and Piper as friends. Full stop. Besides, if August had really wanted to be with Piper, they would have by the time the story starts. So, yeah. Yeah, speaking of when the net comes, it's not coming out this week. It's been delayed. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but when it does, I will start streaming that on Sundays. Cedric finishes his drink and stands. There's a crookedness to his grin that serves to remind me that his mother is a trickster spirit. So, obviously, he's also half-Fae. I mean, look at the ears. Pretty big giveaway. Of course, he could have been a demon himself. But yeah, I think it's indicated earlier on in the story that he's half-Fae, or at least has Fae blood. He's like a cat close to a prize he's been stalking for a long time. Just imagining the tail. Whatever you aren't telling me, Cedric, I hope it's good when you finally do decide to share. But of course, like an afterthought, Cedric bows, elegant and practiced and very distracted. And then he's gone. I glance at the pile of unanswered correspondence and other duties still strewn about my desk, then resolutely turn my back to them. They won't write themselves, but they can wait for a few more hours. Or allow them if what I calculated out of my schedule is right. Still, I can't find it in myself to care. Yep. Sometimes you just need to treat yourself. The tavern smells of spiced potatoes and some kind of sour drink today, as I discover as I open the door. I manage to spy a glimpse of the mostly empty interior, and Sir Eric turns back with a fluent shock of auburn hair next to him before my vision is mostly taken up by a shadow. Excuse me. Now, if you haven't played the nomad route, she be its prey. But we have played the nomad route, so we know exactly who she is. Plus, the tattoo gives it away. My apologies. The dark-haired woman's eyebrow arches like she's surprised at my words, and her lips twitch like she's about to smile, but she's going before I can dwell on it, pushing past me and into the street. I shift uneasily. Have I seen her somewhere or not? Something about her seems passingly familiar, but I can't quite reach for the memory. I see the shadow like Raiden, so there we go. Cedric's throat clearing behind my back forces me to stop dialing and step inside properly, though. So I do, and after a glance at him, he's also cloaked and dressed pleasantly for this occasion, save a traveler's sword at his side, I head for the only people I do know in this place. Well, the bard keeps the same at least, and she seems to remember me, judging from the frown on her face. Rahim! Rue swings her hand enthusiastically like they're going for a friendly backslap, then seems to think better of it and awkwardly stop the table instead. But their grin is huge and genuine. Eric peels his eyes from his mostly empty mud to squint at me. There's resignation in his eyes, but he doesn't look too upset. That's an improvement. Well, it's certainly much better than anything I could expect, considering I saw him naked from the waist up last we met. Oh, yeah. Do they just let important dignitaries loose these days? They try not to, in their defense, but I do what I want. I wave a vague hand at the barkeep. What do you suggest? Water? Oh, come on now, Eric. I'm sure there's enough booze for you both. They've got this fruity in-season drink that's a delight. You can try that. Rum optional. And there's fried and spiced potatoes today. Rue taps her chin thoughtfully. Eric shakes his head, but he is smiling. Smiling, and makes no effort to hide it. Then he notices me staring, and his face immediately throws back into a half frown. I look away, covering my mouth with a hand. Hopefully he doesn't see my grin. Spiced potatoes then, and the seasonal fruity drinks. Do you want any, Rue? Ooh, hospitality. Are you enticing me to stay? Considering I neither make the food nor own the establishment, you're safe, my dear neighbor. I say it more for Eric's benefit than anything. Gay politics don't quite work like that. And it's just as well I do, really, because even though Ruth clearly sounds like they were joking, I don't miss the way Eric gives me a brief, suspicious glance. 3 servings of everything, 2 with no rum. Now hold on. Too late, the barkeep disappears into the back. I only have enough time to glower at Rue, who grins like a fox who's treated a hunter. I think that should be tricked. A hunter into giving them fresh meat before she comes back out with the food. She more or less tosses it all down in front of us and then lumbers away, muttering under her breath. I squint after her. This is the service paying customers get? Eric, put your tab on Raheem's, quick. Hey, my pockets aren't bottomless, you know. Eric snorts. I see him eyeing the mugs like he suspects somebody sat in them, but he grudgingly takes one. I think this one's the one with the rum, and dumps the rest of his bottle of liquor into it. Priorities, man. You're welcome, Sir Eric. Thank you. Should you not eat first before you indulge in drinks? Eric gives me a look. You don't need to be courteous, Ambassador. I'm day drinking. Before noon. Don't know how much further you can sink than the bottom of a rum bottle a few hours past sunrise, but it can't be much. His face darkens. On his other side, Rue jerks a little, worry written all over their face. I think I know the reason why Eric's resorted to day drinking now. So, sometimes it be like that, or what troubles you? We're an ambassador, we're tactful. The best way to go about it, I think, is normally. We all have days like that. Eric snorts derisively, eyes still on his bottle. I suppose that in his case, the days have been one after another. And what exactly brought you here? Can't tell me you're just here for people watching or something equally mundane. I mean, Raheem could just be bored. I would be too if I had to stay in that stuffy castle. I don't know how Eleanor does it. Eleanor? That's not a name I've heard before. Just imagine that yours looking up. But Rue isn't elaborating. Both they and Eric are staring at me now, and I realize that they do expect some kind of answer. I wanted to get away from the castle and the people keen on wasting my time. At least no one recognizes me here, much less talk to me. Eric blinks, eyebrows raised. He turns his head in what almost seems to be a shake, but aborts the movement halfway. I know what he's thinking. I can almost hear whatever protest he has in Cedric's voice. Usually. You can take the protector away from his duty, but not his sense of duty from him, it seems. Rue, meanwhile, has no such compulsion. They shake a finger at me like I've made an excellent point, mouth stuffed with spiced potatoes. It's nice to take a break from being perceived. So I thought you mortal nobles love pretending each other don't exist until it's time to one-up one another. I look at Eric. And who told you that? Sir Nistrum? Eric mutters something inaudible into his mug. Or Eleanor. Interestingly enough, the man doesn't respond to the name, but Rue does. They perk up visibly, and I see hopeful delight in their eyes. Oh, you've met her. I almost feel bad that I'm about to let them down. No, but you mentioned the name as though she's someone I should know. Rue dissuades immediately. Their lips pucker into what's almost a pout. Eric claps him on the shoulder, though he doesn't seem too overly invested in the gesture. You know she's doing fine, and maybe it's better nobody saw her. Who is she? My sister. A fae in the court of Novus? There's a demon in the court of Novus, too. Okay, that's true. Well, that's fair enough, I suppose. I bite my lip before saying more, because what I want to say is that demons are said to be lovers of order insofar as to usurp it. Usurp it? I think that's how I pronounce it. The Novian court, with its shrouded monarchs, its wild-fearing nobles, and its iron grip on the land, would surely be what a demon like Lucian would think is entertaining. And we've seen enough that, yes, they do think so. Not a fae. Fairies go where there's dry grass waiting to be sparked. Not a castle of steel and stone. Interesting. I'll keep an eye out for her. Oh, if you see her, you must be first let me see it. Who knows what catches her interest these days. But if you do, tell her hi. Tell her Ruth's still at the tree if she wants to come visit. I'll do that. The way they smile, though, and how their ears droop, I wonder if she's ever going to come back out of her own free will. It's not strange for Faye, who live close to mortals, to just leave. Sometimes it's more fun for them on the other side of the fence. Eric pushes his tankard away and gives me a look I suppose is meant to be meaningful. I stare back. He mouths, distract them. Oh, really? So I'm an accomplice then. Okay, so we can ask about Raiden. We can continue on the subject of Eleanor, or we can select. I wonder which one I'm going to pick. Don't you know what alcohol does to one's beauty, Eric? I incline my head at him and raise an eyebrow. Eric looks back at me, his face unchanging. A beat of silence passes. Then, much to my delighted surprise, Eric turns away and coughs. His face is flushed, and I'm positive it's not from the alcohol. We made him blush! Yes! Drew perks up next to me, staring with wide brown eyes. This, unfortunately, seems to remind him that there's an audience. He turns right back to me and frowns, but it doesn't last too long either. No one's looking at me now, though, are they? I'm looking, and I must say I'm pleased with what I see. Yep. We're taught to hand it to the character designers. Eric rubs the back of his neck, his jaw working for a moment. Behind him, Rue gives me a thumbs up. I bite my lip to stop a grin from showing. Who knew Sir Eric could be so adorable when flustered? But that's enough teasing, for the time being, I think. And Rue seems sufficiently distracted, so I take a sip of the drink and glance at the window. I would stay here all day with you if I could, but unfortunately there will be a jousting tournament for me to attend. Jousting tournament? Oh, right. Those. I tilt my head curiously. He doesn't sound too enthused. Is there something else I should know about them? No, they have a purpose and serve that purpose well, namely to show off the knight's skills. Dragged you out to attend too, didn't they? Or did you volunteer to go? Lucian invited me, or probably wouldn't know there's even one going on, or more likely than not, someone else would insist I show up with them as an esteemed guest. Neither Cedric nor Yvette have complained about the volume of invitations, but I know. I can sense it. Jousting? Is that like when you poke your fellow with a sharp stick and whoever still sticks to the saddle after is the winner? I cracked up so hard when I first got to this point. I mean, it's a fairly accurate description. More or less. I believe you, of course, but sometimes Rude talks about jousting and he makes this motion. Rude pushes himself away from the counter and thrusts out their hips. Eric spits his mouthful back into the mug. Yeah, I would probably go pretty red. I don't know if it would be from embarrassment or trying not to laugh, but I would probably be very red. Rude! What? You don't need to demonstrate. Yes, we know exactly what you mean. Oh, okay. Then maybe you can explain to me what it means. Because whenever I ask Ray about it, he likes to say something along the lines of, oh, you know, when in fact I do not know. Is this another human thing? It can also be a fae thing. It's an activity to make things. Eric is staring at me. I clear my throat. Eric leans closer to Rue and whispers something, distorted truth, no doubt, in their ear. They seem to consider it for a moment, finger tapping their chin, then nod slowly with the kind of smile that tells me Rue understands the concept of what we're talking about, but doesn't care to fully comprehend it. I don't blame them. Bodily pleasure is a nebulous topic for most fairies at best when their own physical manifestations are tied to their whimsical, impermanent, yet enduring natures. And, which kind of jousting are you going to be doing? Eric looks like he's trying to fit his entire face into the mouth of his mug so he doesn't have to look at either of us. Talk about awkward. I love it. I'm not jousting. I'll be watching people do it. So, another third option. Or rather watching the nice sponsors. Of course, we're taking the third option. Although, if Sir Eric ever takes up the sport again, take a slow, long sip of my drink and arch an eyebrow of him over the rim, meaningfully. Moment of silence. Rue vibrates in their seat, their lips pressed firmly together, but the mirth just radiating from them. I will, let you know. Rue nudges him lightly in the ribs with an elbow. Motivation for you not to slack on your drills. I think that one actually took me a couple to realize exactly what he meant. It takes effort for me not to flutter on my mouthful of drink. Jokes aside, keep your wits about you and be careful. There's things in the city you'll do well not to tangle with, especially if you're going to show up here often. He jerks his chin over his shoulder at the rest of the tavern, and I can't help but tense. I follow his gaze, but can see nothing out of the ordinary. A couple of people enjoying a meal and a drink, all a fair distance from me. I don't even know if they're within earshot. That Cedric's among the patrons gives me a lot more confidence anyway. Maybe too much, but present company doesn't need to know that. And who might these things be? Raiden's friends? Eric's chin dips, but he doesn't quite nod. I don't need him to, though, so to know that it's exactly what he needs. I lower my voice as well. And here I thought Raiden was a freelancer. He wouldn't be alive this long if he'd been on his own. This is true. Never thought I'd thank the damn Assassin's Guild for anything, but what else can go sideways lately? An entire guild of them? Eric's eyes widen slightly, his mouth opening. He hasn't intended to split that bit, I realized, but too late now. I can't pretend I didn't hear it either. I wonder if Cedric heard as well. Yes, an entire guild of them, in this city. Some of them come here to get drinks and jobs quite often, so you'd best watch yourself. I have help watching my back, but thank you for your concern. And don't worry, I'll protect you. As will Sir Eric, if push comes to shove, I take it. I smile at him as annoyingly as possible, just because. Always fun. Good for you that you're so sure of yourself. But I meant it. But I mean it. Watch yourself. I feel like that's advice we can both practice. I am watching myself. Saying this, he picks up his mug and downs the rest of the contents, then wipes his mouth on his sleeve. He leans away from the counter, then slowly rises to his feet as though testing his own weight. But Eric is steady as any knight and only shakes his head. And I'm going to demonstrate by making myself scarce. What about the spiced potatoes? Even as they produce a bag burlap sack from God knows where and start to empty the food into it. Who doesn't go in there? What? I saw potatoes being poured out of a bag like this. Not cooked potatoes. They're roast potatoes now. Thanks, Eric. And the final plate of food is emptied into the sack before I can even wave the barkeep down to ask for something more appropriate to wrap it in. Gotta love their logic. But it makes sense. But, there's a reason I love brew. Shouldn't you be going soon, Ambassador? These tournaments take place around midday, don't they? And it's not a carriage ride then. I think there's a word missing. I glare at him, absolutely aware that as he's talking, Rue is creeping for the door. You're quite the accomplice, Sir Eric. Good day, Ambassador. He bows as though by habit, then straightens. For a moment, Eric frowns, but then he shakes his head and looks away. No, it won't be fair to you to play messenger. That depends on what the message is. Doubly so, then, since it's something I don't have the courage to say myself. Have a good day, Ambassador. Can't say whether us meeting again would be a good thing, but I do look forward to it. That is a huge concession from Eric. I wonder if the message was for Martha. Or maybe Livia. You'll never know. Don't take that as an invitation to my cabin. It's not. And back to the paternal curmudgeon. Although he's not that old. And with that, he's gone. Okay, I was just wondering about something. I stare at the door for a long moment after it swung shut behind him, then shake my head and turn back to the barkeep, who was staring at me expectantly. Sighing, I paid their time. 3 drinks with 2 empty. Did I really drink that entire mug without noticing? If it were me, that would be a yes. Especially if I'm very focused on the conversation and not on what I'm drinking or even eating. Because when you get hyper-focused, you don't notice what else you're doing. That's why I keep a thing of water near my computer. Because otherwise, I won't drink. I won't stay hydrated. I'll have to come back for those potatoes, though, someday. For now, there's a jousting tournament to attend. If I rush, I'll still make it back to the castle and the waiting carriages in time. I have to give it to Novians. Their luxury carriages really are something else. The soft seats and relaxing flowery fragrance wafting from the few incense pots inside my carriage help distract me from the moderately long ride to the jousting ground, for which I'm grateful. Certainly there's no interesting conversation to help keep me engaged. The few nobles who ride with me are complete strangers with little love for strangers themselves, which means the only real conversation partners that I can't freely talk to is Cedric. Perhaps I shouldn't complain too much. It's ample time to think about what Eric and Rude told me, or is a better term, let slip to me, about the Assassin's Guild and Novus. So, this is one I don't really know. I don't think the choices are really that big a deal. I mean, maybe if you're planning to romance reading, it's going to affect things, but honestly, I haven't seen any indication that this decision really affects what's going on. So, we're going to grab a handy-dandy dice. I happen to have dice near my computer. So, since it's 3 choices, I'm going to roll a d6. And 1 or 4, we're going to go with the first option, 2 or 5, the second option, 3 or 6, the third option. 6, so third option. I shake my head and cross my arms, sinking deeper into my cloak. As long as I stay out of my way and me out of theirs, I suppose. Assassins charge steep prices, and, well, Raiden has been affable enough. Yeah, there is a scene later where you really get to understand just how skilled Raiden is. That's only in the nomad route. Thinking about him worries me. I've never doubted that he has fangs. Knowing he really uses them is another matter entirely. Yeah, because he's never really threatened the ambassador with them. Because there's no need. There isn't a hit out on the ambassador, so he can be a little shit to the ambassador and not a problem. And what of Rue with such a deep friendship with someone so tainted with others' blood? What of Eric that he also considers Raiden a friend? So who knows, maybe Eric might only think him a pest. I don't think so. I mean, he may act like that, but I think deep down, especially after he was kicked out of the castle, he really came to consider Raiden a friend. I should have asked Eric what kinds of jobs he used to do in the name of his kingdom, though at the time that had felt like an unfair question. He's the first one out the door, ignoring the almost palpable annoyance from our riding companions. Okay, I think something's screwy here. I shake my head and follow him, not too eager to stay here with people who clearly don't take kindly to my wayward knight. Cedric. Yeah, that's really, it's like there's a line missing or something. The carriage rolls gently to a halt. Okay, I think it got flipped. The carriage rolls gently to a halt and Cedric hops his feet next to me. Yeah, that got reversed. The carriage rolls gently to a halt and Cedric hops his feet next to me. He's the first one out the door, ignoring the almost palpable annoyance from our riding companions. I shake my head and follow him, not too eager to stay here with people who clearly don't take kindly to my wayward knight. There we go. At least he's still there to catch my hand and help me off with the carriage. I almost believe he's run off together. A rather involved setup for something they claim is unofficial, isn't it? Cedric jerks his head to the structures around us, and I have to agree. It's hardly the most decorated jousting ground I've ever seen, and there are definitely not enough people in the audience qualified it as a big event, but there's more than enough. Grounds are well kept, its visitors plentiful, and both broad-shouldered knights and aristocrats here to bet on their horses. I spot Lucian's tall silhouette vanishing behind a wagon some distance away. but decide not to pursue them for now. I've seen the seating arrangement. We'll talk later, in the stand. Maybe you should have signed on, Cedric. I prefer the more involved one-on-one type of jousting, my liege, as you know. I snapped my hand back like he's just told me he picked his nose with it. Cedric only grinned, sharp teeth showing. Then his eyes softened most peculiarly. That aside, our friend from Vitris is a competitor. I suppose young Maddox needs to worry about one, not two knights in this case. Cedric stopped smiling. But we lingered long enough next to the carriage. I wait for him to follow and head for the stand. It's only a few steps before we run into a familiar face, however. Ambassador? Oh, gosh. Yes, I have a crush. So beautiful. Sylvia looks far more comfortable and happy back in her armor, even smiling, though to my eyes it's the kind of smile that reminds people she's not to be trifled with. On her shoulder, her huge raven looms, its beady eyes watching. As soon as it sees me, however, it squawks and takes off. We do find out about the Raven in the night chapter, which I will be streaming next week. The journey treated you well, I trust. I couldn't hope for better, Knight Commander. Give my regards to whoever was responsible for furnishing those carriages. Vivia's smile twitches like it threatens to break into a grin, but that's gone very quickly. Her face settles to neutrality only a second later, and she gives me, then Cedric, a one-over. Very good. You just missed your compatriot, though. Perhaps it's just as well. Imagine the cries of cheat one would hear. Some few here still think you're a grand wizard in disguise, and would no doubt insist you cast the spell of supernatural strength on the good knight should their men lose. So, the third option, I've never taken it. I probably never will take it because the ambassador's not that naive. I usually take the first option if I'm not flirting with Olivia, or with Livia. There's no O in part of it. But of course, I'm flirting with everyone. No, they found me out. How could it be? I was so careful about my powerful magics of supernatural muscle enhancement. Livia chuckles. I blink, surprised. She seems to be, too, for a moment, a gauntleted hand rising to her face as though to hide her mouth. It aborts itself in a jerkish, awkward gesture, and Livia looks away, clearing her throat. Too late. I've seen it. See, my enchantments are so mighty that I can move the Knight Commander to laugh. Don't push your luck, Ambassador. Teeny little quirk of the mouth there. There's not too much heat behind her words, though, and she's not frowning. I take it as a small victory and sketch a slight, just a little mocking bow. I certainly hope our good knight knows that the Knight Commander is devoted to seeing that all is fair. It's no less than my duty. One mediocre knight who believes her failures to be someone else's fault and refuses to work to improve is a much weaker link in our ranks than a dozen bumbling recruits who take their losses in strides and grow stronger. I love that attitude. Besides, Vitris depends upon the strength of Novus. It would be a poor reply to your faith if your representative isn't made to bleed for your victory. Come, I will see you to the stand. Livia steps away, extending her hand to me in invitation. I glance back at Cedric. You should go check on your friend, see how he's doing. Maddox isn't. He shakes his head and bows, far more sharply than usual, and retreats from view. I watch him disappear towards the competitor's tent before following Livia. She doesn't take my hand or offer to take my coat, but does see me all the way up to the portion of the stand, set aside for distinguished guests before excusing herself. From the side of her jaw, I wonder if Livia has caught sight of foul play after all, but she's gone before I can press for an answer, which unfortunately leaves me to sit in an as-of-yet empty chair. Considering who's going to be occupying these seats around me, maybe I shouldn't complain that they haven't arrived. Still, I lean over the balcony and try to take in as much of the sights as possible. Separated from us, there is another side of the audience that already sounds much rowdier, the lower class, no doubt, here to watch for the joy of it, and a most distinctive white head bobbing just out of view. For a moment, I stare at the place where it vanished. Then I look around, suddenly nervous. That's not Raiden I've just glimpsed, is it? And why is he always somewhere absolutely packed with people who are directly hazardous to his health? I just spoke to Olivia not minutes ago. You seem concerned. The voice almost makes me jump. I glance towards the entrance and there see the silhouette of a tall, passingly familiar gentleman in the stand. He raises an eyebrow at me as he gathers his robes in one hand and approaches. Is there something on my face? So, who could this gentleman possibly be? Not at all. I was simply... The other eyebrow joins the first. He takes a seat next to me. Is that even the seat that's meant for him? And leisurely folds his arms together. Good, good. I was worried for a moment there. It wouldn't do to let our esteemed ambassador from Bithris sit ill at ease. There have been enough causes for unease around here lately. I can name one, yes? You are? I don't believe I caught your name. I like the thrill. It keeps me alert. Let's go with the middle one. Who is this man? I don't believe I have caught your name, sir. Although there's something strikingly familiar about his eyes. Something very Maja-like. Count Nazir Oyinka. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Ambassador Kadir. Aha! Related to Maja. I don't suppose my sister told you about me, had she? Aha! Maja's brother. We do get to see them interact a little bit, both in this route and in the night route, and definitely siblings. No, she hadn't. I'm tempted to ask if she even knows he's here, or if they were even on good terms if she omitted an entire brother from conversations we've had, but the Count is already laughing. He waves a hand as though to dismiss my concerns and shakes his head. Just as well, were she here, she would likely scold me to behave. At least by name. Okay, I think there's something else missing here. At least by name, the Count holds a small but prosperous territory near Novus, so closer to Bithris than the capital. I've enjoyed the wines and cheeses we imported from his land. I didn't know, however, that he's related to Maja. There's a lot of rumors surrounding the lord of that country. Some say some mighty wizard, they say. It's a little jarring to see the Lord of Ravens in the flesh, to be honest, and they're sticking more feathers and gold trimmings from the tales they tell about you. Nazir chuckles, but it's the light laugh of a weary man. Here I was hoping I would meet someone who doesn't know about that ridiculous moniker. They always ask for feathers, and I could hardly tolerate the gold trimmings as they are now. Perhaps it's just as well. Any more, you might blind half the competitors, and then where would we be? Nazir shakes his head, but he's smirking. He's decidedly related to Maja, vaguely intimidating at first, but quick to find mirth and just as quick to be friendly. The thought gives me some comfort. Harvest season is upon us, Count Maloyanka. Your decision to make a visit to the capital must mean there's some important business. I ask because I'm genuinely, well, at least a little, worried. It's impossible that I've done something wrong as an ambassador already, but considering the direction everything's been going of late, I can't help the mild anxiety. Indeed. Well, yes, I was rather concerned when I heard the news that someone tried to assassinate His and Her Majesty. Oh, that would be a good reason to visit, I suppose. Though most would be more willing to leave the capital than come this way. I look at him curiously. Maja hasn't been shy to admit she's in charge of Novus's security and intelligence, and I wonder if her brother shares that responsibility. He doesn't answer in so many words, simply steepling his fingers and looking down at the jousting range. But in his silence, there is the answer. I follow his gaze and watch the first pair of knights ride their proud steeds out into the open. Not quite an interjection, but rather just to show off. The livery they wear is unknown to me. Did you approach me because you hold me under suspicion, Lord Olenka? No, I did not. I don't doubt that Maja vouched for me, for which I'm grateful. Though it's my duty to regard everyone with some degree of doubt. He rises to his feet again and gazes out to the field, and I suddenly realize he's looking for someone. Sure enough, there's another knight leading his horse around the range. From this distance, I can't make out anything except for a shock of curly dark hair and his livery, but he turns to look at us and waves. Nazir sighs. His expression is always lost on that boy. But he waves back. Your son? More or less. My ward, Owain, and the reason for the delay in my plans to return to my estate. So it's just as well. I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet you otherwise, and that would have been a terrible regret. He takes a seat again, glancing behind us. I don't need to follow his gaze to hear the other nobles coming in. Thankfully, they fan out around us and come nowhere close. Pocket of peace and quiet. Sometimes a needlessly dramatic reputation can't afford you little luxuries like these. So it is you they are avoiding. Are you here to intimidate them or to listen in? Should I be worried for myself? We're going with the first one. May I be so bold to test whether you're here to intimidate them or to listen in? The smirk flashes through Nazir's features, so he quickly schools it away and turns his head so no one around us can see his expression. I follow his example, becoming increasingly aware of the number of eyes on me, and the whispering. Both. And that's why I picked that response, because I love his answer. It's almost comical how the low conversations behind us dip audibly in volume with one word from him. I'm terribly tempted to glance over my shoulder and see what kind of expressions the others are wearing, but control myself. Nazir lifts a finger and makes a small, almost imperceptible gesture in the air. The spell he weaves, however, washes over me in a tinkle of cold air. It's something I haven't felt before, an anti-eavesdropper enchantment. So he is a mage. I hear you're on invitation from Lucian Veritas. He says it casually enough, but something about it puts me on high alert. They were the one who suggested the outing, yes. Not that I wouldn't have received a dozen different invitations for it by others, anyway. I did, actually, but I told Cedric and Yvette to throw them out. I have enough trash on my desk as is. Nazir inclines his head thoughtfully. I don't know if I like whatever is going on in there. And so, in extending their offer first, they ensured you were safe from other aristocrats' efforts to get you on their string, so to speak. Or they were simply bored and wanted to show a guest something new, for which I'm grateful. No doubt. He scratches his beard thoughtfully and gazes out at the stands below us. Isn't this the part where you give me a warning about how trusting demons and participating in their games is foolish? Novus tits, would hope you don't think I think that little of you. You're right, the Lucian is probably bored, or is involved in its petty problems and little else. He shakes his head and glances over his shoulders and frowns, annoyed. I follow his gaze discreetly and see the triplet sisters. Those with direct responsibility to the kingdom are often away from the capital to better manage the stewardship, which leaves the leisurely here, so to speak, namely the new Marquis's daughters. Nazir gives me a wry smile, but he doesn't correct me. So perhaps I shouldn't say too many things without knowing them personally. I only know they're most smug over their father having assumed a Marquis position. We do eventually see them. I've seen the preview art for him. I phrased it as a question, hoping he would elaborate on the circumstances. Shocking, isn't it, to hear that a nobleman lost his title and all the privileges that came with it on charges of incompetence. But the will of the crown is absolute, and their one desire is that order is maintained. In order for order to be maintained, without resorting to fear and tyranny, there must be trust. The trust is built from the strength of the leader. So goes the saying, if the leader is weak or wavering, the structure also weakens. And if the structure collapses, order will be lost. Better to strike out the weak link and reforge another before the chain breaks. I feel like Maja said something along those lines too. He leans on the railing and watches the crowd in the stands below us dispassionately. What he says is nothing new. Okay, that sounds familiar. Maja told me as much the first time she took me through the palace garden, when we first met the triplet daughters. But the same sentiment from him seems somehow harsher. So do we bring up Errant, or do we just speak generally? We're going to be bold. We're going to bring up Errant. Like Sinistrum? Nazir visibly stiffens, if only for a brief moment. Had I not been watching him for a reaction, I would have missed it. He straightens slowly and turns to me, then crosses his arms. The look in his eyes is wary now, piercing. No, that's a different matter. I wait, but he offers nothing more. The silence sits between us for a moment after, heavy and somber. Then Nazir shrugs. Terribly sorry if I made you uneasy, Ambassador. The inner workings of the Novian court. No, I suppose it is your problem. considering you're in the middle of it all. True. He gives me an appraising but also quizzical look. What is he looking for? Some proof of my commitment to not clap my hands over my ears and hope every metaphorical arrow whizzing past me misses its mark? It doesn't even deserve an answer then. I simply stare back, arms crossed. A moment later, Nazir bobs his head, eyebrows raised, stretching acceptance. I find myself wishing you had always been our Vistrian envoy. Your predecessor, decided he wanted to know the whole truth too late, too fast. What did he do? Argue against your system of justice in front of a crowded court? Nazir scratches his beard thoughtfully. For a moment, I'm sure he's going to dance around the topic again, like everybody else has been. It was, surprisingly enough, rather a matter of making a fence. Vistras and Errantes share only a few things in common, Ambassador. One of which, and I'm sure you're aware, is the respect we have for the land. After all, it isn't ours, but rather shared to us, entrusted to us by the ancient gods who live here, the faithful would say. The truth is much less complicated and much more dangerous. Our presiding god, Novus, in all their myriad wisdom, always watches over us. They see everything and measure every soul by its deed. We believe that their majesties are demigods, both in name and in authority, and Novus is one of the most abundantly magical places of this continent. To even insinuate that any of these facts are, well, less than facts. He shakes his head, and I could throw the rest of the links myself. Okay, so we're kind of getting an idea of what happened with our predecessors. I think there's more to it than even this. I'm glad he left this place with his life. Believe me, I am just as surprised. So it seems someone might have made sure he does. Our demonic ambassador might be the most prominent person of interest among our courtiers, but they aren't the only one. For a moment, Nature smiles, wryly but so fondly, before his face smooths over again. It's been a while since I saw her, but Lady Silverleaf, a long-living fae at that, has always had a soft spot for troublemakers. Now, I do hope she and you don't make close acquaintances. I've liked what I see from you so far. Don't prove my impressions wrong. I smile at him, beautifully, like I haven't wandered the town more or less by myself, getting into all sorts of business I could technically do without. Not to mention Cedric poking around the city, getting his hands dirtied, and even more secrets. He smiles back like he knows. You say he decided to want to know everything too late, too fast? What is it that he wanted to know? Not even I know the details, and the reasons for his behavior wasn't as important as the fact that he acted foolishly, offensively. He is lucky that he didn't do it in our monarch's direct earshot, or mine, and some temperaments in this castle are far too gentle. His gaze drifts past my shoulder and focuses on something behind me. His chin dips in a half nod of acknowledgement. I turn to see a new wave of spectators entering the stands, Lucian and Masha among them. It's her that Nate is looking at, I'm sure, because her eyes narrow in a warning glare, even though her smile never falters. It does at least brighten a little when she sees me. Lucian quickly takes up my attention, however, as I walk directly to the seat at my side. At the same time, Nazir stands and clears his throat. Oh gosh. I best greet my sister before she sees fit to accuse me of scaring death again. I will assure her that no such thing happens if she asks Count Olympus. Thank you for your generosity, ambassadors. There we go. With that, he's gone. I don't even turn to look where he's going, but I have a feeling he's not going to go over and talk to Masha. Lucian's smile is borderline cheeky as they settle down next to me, arranging their robes with the forage. They're back in their human appearance. Still fucking gorgeous. I was a little worried you would have problems making friends, but I see Lord Nazir himself has set aside time to make your acquaintance. I feel honored. Maybe the way I say it is a little sarcastic, but I can't help it. Lucian arches an elegant eyebrow, a golden claw tapping their chin thoughtfully. I had figured his attention would be invaluable to you. It was. So, I'm not going to be approached by the royal spy master. Something kept you busy until 9, or flirt. Yeah. I recline in my seat and give Lucian a meaningful look. I just much prefer your more charming company. And if you would favor me with your undivided attention as these fellow nobles behind our back have favored mine in the Count's conversation. There are indistinct shuffling noises over my shoulder, but I don't deign to look. I would be duly charmed. Lucian chuckles, a sound deep and rich, and it sends a spark right through me, as it always has. They lean closer, their whisper sweet. Anything for my guest of honor. It's a regrettably long moment before I can wrangle myself back into control enough to reply. I appreciate your generosity. I shake my head and pinch the bridge of my nose. Just thinking back to the interaction gives me a mild headache. It's still not the best thing to be approached by the royal spy master of all people. He introduced himself as such? Interesting. No, but I got the hint the second time. He alluded to knowing everybody and everybody's business. Besides, he's Maj's brother. I would be surprised if he was just some count who's famous for his vineyards. That would make things easier, though, wouldn't it? So, of course, that wouldn't happen. Lucian is studying me, their pale eyes narrowed thoughtfully. What? You know, when Count Olenka goes out of his way to talk to somebody, that person typically ends up dead, dishonored, or dearly loved by the monarchs at some point. Oh. I genuinely don't know which of those three is the worst possible outcome. So let's look back at those three. Dead, dishonored, or dearly loved by the monarchs. And you're like, I don't know which is worse. So being dearly loved by the monarchs is not a good thing. We don't know. But thank you for putting me ill at ease. Lucian grinned, wagging a finger at me. I said, typically, my dear ambassador. You have shown yourself to be anything but typical, along with your circumstances. Besides, your diplomatic importance protects you. As does yours? There's a pause before they answer that, where they stroke their chin thoughtfully. I'm burning to ask what exactly they're an envoy of, and whether their master is something I'll have to contend with as well, but I wait. Not really, but to everybody's benefits that I remain here. Benefits the Novian crown understands are valuable. Lucian winks. You were rather late. Rest assured, I didn't mind, but did something keep you from the stands until now? We glanced at the people behind us. At least they seemed to have lost interest as soon as Nazir walked away. We are now mostly engaged in idle conversations about taxes and who would win. I catch sight of Maja, who gives me a friendly smile, but she's too quickly pulled back to a conversation with another lady. Shaking my head, I look to Lucian again. Of a sort, I caught sight of a snake slithering about in the crowd, so I had to make sure it's safely out of sight. You know how snakes can offend aristocratic sensibilities. So I didn't hallucinate that shock of white hair. And yeah, we do find out more about what Raiden's doing there later. I wonder why the snake decided to come to a high-security place to begin with. Not the best show of self-preservation. Lucian shrugs and leans back, their eyes lidded, thinking, what are they thinking about? That one in particular has always loved flirting with danger. I lean closer to them so my words can't be heard. With you mean? Flirt? With me? Perhaps. Not that I can recall hearing much of it before the begging started. Lucian. Oh, look, it's starting. Indeed, it's starting. The first pair of competitors have been led to their respective ends of the range, and a cheer goes up from the other stands. In this one full of important people, though, the event commencing barely impacts the conversation level. They really haven't come here to enjoy the sport. So I expect there will be a lot more talking and complaining when some of the knights start losing. Who do you think would win of this matching? The one in red. I glanced at the competitors. There was no red in either of the knights' tablets. But minutes later, when they crash against each other at the cry of the referee, applause explodes from the stands, a woman dressed in scarlet garbs and the most pompous feathered hat I've seen yet nearly leaped out of her seat near us, clapping enthusiastically. That's what Lucian meant. Lucian inclines her head and shrugs when I glance at them. I'd assumed you were talking about the event in relation to our battlefield, not theirs, and ours is, of course, right here. I can't argue with their logic there. Slowly, I lean back in my seat and look about the range, not for the knights, The winner of whom is leaning down to pick the loser up and shake hands, but for Cedric and other people of interest. Don't be so distracted, Raheem. You rarely get an opportunity to observe so many of your fellow aristocrats teetering on the edge of losing face at the same time. Multi-chance, ask about Lady Silverleaf, or Clerks. Again, going with the third. Just you, Veritas. I spare them a glance and hold it. Lucian inclines their head with that damnable smirk, the ebony hair falling like silk over one shoulder. I mean, I can't blame the ambassador when this is what we're looking at. Hard to tear your gaze away. Even in human form, they're still striking and dangerously attractive. This has to do with the gold and the flamboyant flowing robes, as it is about the languid confidence Lucian wears like a fine perfume. Lucian is commanding my attention. All of it. They tilt their head further, and that smirk blooms fully into a grin. I'm vaguely surprised to not see fangs there. Flattery, flattery. Nonetheless, I appreciate your forwardness, Ambassador. It's refreshing to be admired so openly. They wink and look over my shoulder, and my face feels hot as I remember we're among a crowd. Clearing my throat, I turn away. With the first match concluded, there's a lull in the zone of excitement for me to turn and take in the crowd of aristocrats around me. Already an argument is starting somewhere to the other end of our seating area. Something about the quality of the left the loser wields. Livia is absolutely right, apparently. All this leads to is trivial bickering. Boring, isn't it? That's why I thought I would invite you along. Have some fresh company for once. You brought me for entertainment value? Should have brought along a deck of playing cards. Would you trust me with cards when I'm wearing these, what did Malta say? Luminous sleeves? I narrow my eyes at them, if playfully. I wouldn't trust you with cards even if you were naked, Lucian. You're irresistibly shrewd. We share a laugh, small and drowned away by the noise of all around us as it is. I should be the one asking you what is so significant about this event. The previous envoys also attended them quite often. To politely accept the show of Klaus and Novus mostly, and also to witness the strength of their royal knights. These would be the people sent to fight on our behalf if Vithris ever petitions Novus for military help after all. It's reassuring to see their skills in battle. Skills I'm currently not watching at all. Not that I'm too torn up about it. Novian quality of war hasn't dipped in the least for centuries. Or so the oldest members of our Fae Court have said. I'm inclined to believe them. And are you impressed? A cry goes up from the audience, drowning out my words. I look to the race to see that another match has been decided. The livery worn by the winner is one I do recognize this time. So Olainkins, whose ward is no trifling recruit. That's good. But it makes sense. I mean, if he's the royal spy master, then he would take care that his own house was in order. I suppose. Forgive me, recent events have been distracting as of late. No apologies necessary. It's been a strange time for everyone. Why are you here, Lucian? I lean back in my seat and closer to Lucian so that we aren't overheard. Of the many things I've learned, willingly or not, since coming here, they're the biggest mystery that haunts me. Why this court, this kingdom? You sense some sort of oncoming disaster? Lucian laughs low in their throat. They lean close and gently lift a hand. Their touch on my chin is so light I can barely feel it. All I can see, all my mind can perceive for a moment, are their bright silver eyes. Silver eyes that bore into me, intense and consuming. They say demons can peer into your soul, weigh your worth, like the gods of the dead. In this moment, I wonder if it's true. I'm no clairvoyant, my friend, not a nomad. People have always been their own downfall, no more and no less. They lean back, expression almost gentle, and in so doing, releases me from that strange metaphorical grip. Another cheer from the crowd, another match is decided. I haven't even seen the knight's emblems this time. Novus is a land that abides the laws of its gods, and gods are, as a rule, immortal and unchanging. But people aren't made for permanence, or things built by them. Lucian pulls their arms into their sleeves and tilts their head. The look in their eyes twisted as they gaze over the jousting tournament. There's a small, almost sad smile, just a ghost of it lingering on their lips. They've done an excellent job striking the balance between the eternal and the transient, don't you think? But that's the thing with balance. It starts wobbling eventually. My mouth feels dry. At the same time, I feel like I'm getting vertigo. This shouldn't be the place to be getting this kind of wisdom, I think. This lingering crowd, absorbed in their petty problems and competitions. At this event, formally hosted and held in high esteem, yet only symbolic in meaning. It's a strange place to hear what I'm hearing. Oh, look, your Vitrian countrymen. Lucian's voice shakes me out of my stupor. Turn my attention back to the range once more, just in time to see a knight bearing the symbol of our homeland getting into position. With a shout from the referee, the armored figure, and their counterpart bolt forward, the crowd boos as much as it cheers. A foreigner in our garden, as their steeds pick up the tempo of a gallop. And then there's a thunderous clash of shields and lances, and then another crash of an armored body thrown into the dirt. Obviously, this will be much different from the knight's point of view, because that's who this is. This is the knight. What did I name him? Ehad. Yes. Ehad. So that will be next week, from my point of view. With a hard yank on the warhorse's reins to pull it under control, the Vitrian knight raises their lance in salutation. There's a pause, and then clapping, stretchingly. Lucian chortles. You'll never hear the end of that. I wonder what excuses the court will make to see one of their best thrown into the dirt by the representative of the very country they consider inferior in military strength. Don't remind me. But I'm smiling. I can't help it. There are a few more rounds after that, which I try my hardest to give my full attention to. Lucian says a little more, though, which a few of our fellow aristocrats take as a cue for them to start conversations. I think the biggest excuse people are going to come up with is, well, they've been training with our knights, so that's why they were able to do to best someone. They're benefiting from being under the command of Livia Vasile, the Harbinger. About halfway between an inexplicable debate about the quality of codpieces and another somewhat more relevant one about why mages weren't being showcased when the victor of the tournament is declared. Maybe, unsurprisingly, it's our friend from Viprus. I can feel the glares on me as the nobles gather themselves up and make ready to leave. No bragging allowed, it seems. Lucian also stands, offering their hand to me in a flourish. I take it and pull me to my feet with ease. They lean closer again, their mouth almost right next to my ear. Forgive me, but I have some business to take care of now that the main attraction's over. I trust you can make it to the carriages by yourself? Of course. Lucian claps past my shoulder and winks and makes for the stairs. For someone with full-length robes, they sure run fast. Shaking my head, I'm about to follow them out when a familiar, welcoming voice reaches my ear. Rahim! Maja, and there you are again, Bodolinga. Please, Nazir will do. I hope you enjoyed the joust. Sure, of course I did. Maja smiles, her eyes twinkling at the corners. It's an expression of polite doubt. Her brother next to her just raises his eyebrows like he knows I'm lying. A pity we will have to leave with the company we came with, or I would have invited you to sit with us. And by that I mean myself and Livia. Nazir arrived here on a magic broom, it seems, since apparently nobody knew he came at all. A magic... Guess I'll be going back to the same manner I arrived, with my own solitary blissful company. If I had any doubts that related before, I don't have any now. Masha chuckles and pats Nazir's arm, then winks at me. Well, we do still have that tea time you invited me to after this. We do indeed. Another thing I've almost completely forgotten about, and that one requires some arrangement. One I'd better make right now. I'll see you there, Masha? Count on it. Another smile, she grabs Nazir's arm and drags him away. Siblings. I don't remember if it's indicated who's the elder of the two. I can hear them complaining down the steps and around the corner as I follow them at a more leisurely pace. As I reach the grass, I realize it's probably a good thing they have gone ahead too, because there's a familiar face waiting for me. He winks and quickly walks away, round in the sands and vanishing out of sight. Who could this be? Troublemaker. I follow him. You know, people will start packing if we keep meeting like this. And what are you going to do? Stab me? Nah, reconnaissance only. Didn't come here alone either, which means I'm Raiden wiggles his fingers, nose bunched up. Honorably bound to at least try to behave. Yeah, he came with the nomad. Just don't get caught, flirt. I inclined my head and grinned, knowing by now what might just make Raiden react. A shame, Snake. Misbehavior is a good look on you. Oh, trust me, I know. I wake up with this face every day. Raiden runs a hand through his tousled hair as he says it and smirks, and I know immediately that he's annoyingly self-aware about his physical attractiveness. Reminds me of Ivy, pretty, stubborn, and irritating to the touch. A handsome face, a talented tongue, and an inexplicable need to be as close to people who would run you through with a sword as possible. It's true what they say, you can't have everything. Raiden shrugs and crosses his arms, mirroring my stance. Takes one to know one. Rat. And who exactly did you bring to this wonderful event? Someone you immediately ditched in favor of swinging your dick at the nearest metaphorical hornet's nest? Wow, you just assumed that I'm the one who ditched my partner? Hurtful. Okay, you're right, I did. This time. And give me some credit, would you, your fanciness? I haven't even gone within 10 feet of that ice queen all day. His customary grin tenses up for a second, and I know for a fact we're both thinking about Olivia. Get it going, Raiden, before someone else sees you, God forbid. Hey, you fancy pants. With that and a half-baked two-fingered salute, Raiden hurries out of sight. So, obviously, we'll find out more about what happens with Raiden and the Nomad in the Nomads chapter, which is in 2 weeks. I shake my head and turn, making to head back to the carriages as well, though I'm not that much in a hurry. It's going to take a while to hoist all those navels into the carts like it took to unload them. And almost walked directly into Cedric. Cedric, God, you scared me. Make some noise next time. How's Maddox? He's fine, hale and hearty, and his night wine, so all the better. Your friend there, hale and hearty too, eh? I glower at him. He saw that exchange, or at least he saw Raiden leaving, I'm sure. But is this the place to bring it up? Play later. Let's go for now. Oh yes, please. I would love to hear everything, the whole truth this time. With that cheeky remark and a raised eyebrow, Cedric takes me back to the carriages. And back to the castle. The ride back and the hours after are uneventful at least. Cedric also apparently already knew most of what I was going to tell him, dramatic hackling, but I tell him anyway, of Eric and Rue, and of the few times I've met Raiden. Few times too many, if you ask me. He would say that. Can't help it, Cedric. He just shows up whenever I'm going. And I suppose your decision to go after who you know is an assassin is also completely out of your hands. Quite. I settle at my desk again and stare up at him indignantly. Cedric shakes his head but relents. Thank you. If he stabs you in the future, whether with his dagger or something else, please make sure to let me know. Really? Really, Cedric? I sigh, but he's grinning now, so that's a new concern. And why are you so happy? Your snooping turned up something? Well, no. I was asking around town to see if anyone was going to bet against our countrymen, but turns out the audience going to that particular joust was too low for gambling games. And is that all it was? From my end, yes. You seem to have learned something much more interesting. I don't know if it's new information or more of a warning. I wonder if all the records of the previous ambassador have been purged, or if there happen to be physical remnants of his findings around the castle somewhere. Surely they won't let him bring anything home. I'm sending a message home asking for specifics about the question. Maja and Naze's security network will flesh out even the most magically concealed letter, unless, of course, it goes underground. Do you think assassins take care of their mission, Cedric? Don't do whatever it is you're thinking of doing. And besides, he gestures up a small box made of rosewood and gilded and brass, currently sitting at the other side of my desk. Your appointed time with Maja is soon. He says it like he hopes she'll talk me out of whatever foolishness I might be up to. I roll my eyes. That's doubtful, but he's right that I should be going soon. And what will you be doing? Lurking in the holly bushes while I talk to her? Resting. It's been a day, and Yvette would want to hear all about this. Nor will she be happy with it, my poor handmaiden, or my poor ears when she hears about it. Cedric just mocks me. Yvette will rip Raiden apart if she catches him near me. But that's a problem for later. Sighing, I rise to my feet again and reach for the coat Yvette has laid so carefully on a nearby couch, and eye the gilded wooden box with some trepidation. I've commissioned a gift from Masha. The idea's been in my head since I knew she's the Archmage of Novus, but I haven't expected her to help me out so much since then. What has at first only been a gift of courtesy has suddenly become something much more meaningful. I can only hope she would like it. You have always been quite good at picking presents. Thank you. Cedric smiles sympathetically, then goes to open the door for me. Under his expectant gaze, there's nothing else I can do except to put the coat on, grab the box, and follow. I hope you managed to get some rest between the tournament and this, Rahim. Marja's already waiting for me in the gazebo in the garden. The tea and snacks for us artfully laid out on the iron table. Some aren't even treats I recognize, but the fragrance from the steaming teapot is already inviting. I did, and don't tell me you took the trouble to bake all these treats, Marja. This time, no. The confectioners prepared this for us, since I've been so busy the past few days. I wonder if it's to do with the tournament security or something else. It seems rude to inquire about security matters when her brother has just gently warned me about them this morning. I simply smile and take the seat opposite of her. Marja's grin widens, then fades in exchange for a curious look at the box in my hand. Oh my, what have you brought? A gift, for you that is, and long overdue after all you've done for me. I offer the box to her, watching the curiosity turn to radiant delight on Marja's face. It does much ease my trepidation, but she hasn't even opened it yet. May I? Of course. I apologize if I can't contain my excitement. I love gifts, giving and receiving, and even at a glance I could tell this is something very, very fun. Goodness. With a flick of her finger, Marja undoes the latch on the side and flips the lid back. For a long moment, where my heart feels like it's climbing to my throat, I watch Marja staring at the contents. She blinks and lifts it up, holding it in the air where the quill, large and elegant, catches the fading evening light. I watch as she examines it, trying not to let the bubbling anxiety and pit of my stomach show on my face. It's a carefully chosen gift, and I don't doubt my own judgment in choosing it, but still. Especially when Marja studies the quill with the appreciative yet critical eye of a knight examining a new sword. Well, in a way, for Marja it is a sword, because this is her weapon of choice. Besides her magic. And then she grins, widely. So happy. Back. She doesn't speak right away, instead tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. For a moment, Marja seems to struggle with containing her grin down to a more polite smile. It loses the battle and laughs instead. This is wonderful, my friend. It is a wonderful, wonderful gift. You, most of all, thoughtful and generous as you are, to have prepared it. The feather of a snow phoenix, I assume, so light to the touch, but it bounces well with the metal tip. Marja examines the gift again, but this time I can watch her do it with nothing less than relief and gladness. Yes, it is, and you can consider it a gift from my home as much as it's mine. They were grateful for the generosity and friendship you have treated me with since I first arrived here. Please, my friend, it is Novus's way to treat her honored guests as they should by rights be treated, as it is Victor's way to give as much as it was given. Marja's eyes sparkle. She inclines her head and carefully returns the quill to its gilded box, which she holds for a moment longer, her eyes shining. The feather's almost metallic gleam seems to brighten in that second, and I wonder if she is attuning her magic to it. Snow Phoenix's feathers are known to absorb most enchantments, especially warding and scribing-related ones, the most powerfully after all. It's the reason behind the gift, never mind that it looks somewhat blue and would have matched with Marja's favorite colors. I must write with it as soon as I can. Who will I address the letter to, I wonder? It shouldn't be on some stressful matter. The first letter with the new quill ought to be a joyful one, glad tidings preferably, for good luck. I sit back on my chair and smile, and it's hard not to grin openly. There's a few things as wonderful as having your decisions regarding the present validated so thoroughly, after all. Now we get a choice. Light in the air, your brother, or flirt. Perhaps my name? Masha blinks. Then she smiles, no, smirks, and inclines her head. Oh, that's a very good idea. Masha tucks a strand of hair behind her ear and holds it close flat in her palm. She runs a finger down the length of its spine, and I watch it shudder and glow. Then she takes it in hand and writes my name in the air with a flourish. Bright blue lines flowing from the tip of the quill, hanging suspended in the air for a moment, before beginning to fade. Before they can, however, Masha leans closer and blows on them. They scatter towards me, dissolving in a rush of glimmering blue petals that dissipate. Masha is closer now, her smiling face taking up all of my vision, my attention. The blue, I realize, is the same color as her eyes, strikingly lovely. It works well. She leans back, but the fragrance of her perfume lingers. I almost want to lean closer to taste it, but manage to control myself at the last moment. I'm glad. You will be looking forward to many correspondences from me written by this fellow in the future, I hope, because that will be what happens. Oh, I can't wait for it. Masha laughs and winks. With a final delighted smile, Masha returns the quill back to the box it came from and delicately closes it. Then she snaps her fingers and the teapot lifts itself up and begins to fill the cup. Did you enjoy the event? Oh, right. It's enlightening and much less dull than I was afraid it would be. I sit in my seat for a moment, wondering if I should mention what Lucian told me to Masha. But then it's hard to put the ominous thoughts they passed along into proper words and concerns, so I shelve it. Another day. And congratulations must be given to our representative knight from my homeland, of course. Oh, absolutely. The showing was marvelous. The tournament's outcome will be haunting the halls and gossip lines for weeks, and overburden you with solicitations, I'm sure. So, do we go with the first one? The diplomatic one, or the flirt? The flirt, of course. I recall the mess already on my desk and shake my head, then smile at Masha. You, however, can hand your solicitations directly to my knight. I've asked him to keep an eye out for important correspondences. He'll understand. Masha laughs, sweet and rich, her golden jewelry clinking as she looks at me behind her long, thick lashes. My smile widens. I can't help it. Oh, I would never dare to burden your knight even further with more letters to sort through. I trust you won't object to me personally delivering my letters to you, Raheem. Never let it be said I don't enjoy the anticipation of a letter's response, but between that and being able to enjoy your company in person. But of course. Let my time be yours to enjoy, Lady Masha. The teapot next to us rattles, almost startling me. Masha frowns at it and it immediately stops. I wonder briefly whether it's somehow actually alive. No, it kind of reminds me of the tea set from Sword in the Stone that Merlin had. Except in that case, it was the sugar bowl. No, not the sugar bowl? Well, it was the thing with the sugar in it. It was decidedly saucy. But she's quick to laugh and wave a hand. Well, our tea is getting cold. Let's set about sampling this fine spread of cheeks, shall we? She doesn't have to tell me twice. The selection of sweets and baked treats is apparently the royal confectioner's most prized creations only, and it tastes as advertised. Different from Vithrin sweets, isn't it? Jam and sauce and almost everything, but still not too sweet. You've eaten Vithrin sweets before? Once or twice. Sometimes when Eric's travels brought him close to your land, he brings back treats he no doubt purchased for a fortune from traveling merchants. Masha's eyes drift from her tea to the darkening garden, and there's a wistful smile playing on the corner of her lips. But only for a moment, almost too brief for me to catch. Her attention is back on me in the next, blue eyes bright with curiosity. I hope you found our accommodations hospitable. The servants assured me you're uncomfortable, but I wonder if you truly were. Oh, the accommodations were lovely. And the freedom. At least no guard has tried to arrest or stop me from going wherever I please, and that's because security is tighter than what's visible to the eye. But still. Masha smirks like she knows exactly what I mean, and shakes her head. So, ask her about Eric, or just leaving the castle. Ask about Eric. Do you miss him? The question comes unbidden. I really shouldn't have acted, I think, but it's too late now to take it back. Maja inclines her head at me curiously, and there's no running now. Eric, I mean. Sir Eric. Oh. To tell you the truth, yes. Things ended badly for him, for us, but not through faults of our own. Judgment is made, and yet it feels unfair somehow. Oh, forgive me, I let my attention drift. No, it's fine. But the curiosity, it burns in me, almost a desperation. I could feel it, the opportunity to ask this question to someone who might just answer. The tragedy of Amaya. Amaya? I think it's her. Can I ask what it is? I've heard tales, but... Maja closes her eyes. I see the line of her mouth and her shoulders tense. You don't have to tell me, my lady. It's a difficult subject. If it's a difficult subject for you. I can talk, really? No, it was a fair question. It's a difficult subject for many people. Maja sighs and clasps her hands together for a moment, like she's praying. Amaya, was a small town located at the fringe of our kingdom. It wasn't known for much either then or now, except that it was once home to a mage of some repute. So we're learning exactly what happened to get Eric where he is. The town was destroyed in an uprising long ago. Its people have long since moved on and begun anew. Its remote location and history made it an attractive base for other rebels. Just last year, our knight commander led a force of royal knights to quench another rebellion, a search that took him to Amaya. Maja stops there. Slowly, she lowers her hands and lays them on the table, palms flat. Then they curl into fists, and I'm not sure if it's fury or grief that bunches her shoulders, since her lips glow. It was slaughter. They said Eric killed his men. Something possessed him, perhaps, or he saw something, but there was no one left. Inquisitors sent to investigate returned with the claim that I fought for him. Nadir fought for him in a way. The typical sentence would have been death. Negligence, betrayal. Instead, Their Majesty showed mercy and chose banishment. Do you believe he did it? So now we can understand exactly why he's such a polarizing figure. It must have been horrible. For Eric and for Masha. I think we do get Eric's side of the story, but I can't remember who he tells it to. I think back on the man I know, the man I met just this morning. That man killing his entire retinue of knights? That's impossible. I believe him when he said he doesn't remember what happened. Oh damn. How could it be his fault if something or someone else made him do it? Guilt is judged by deed and by the hand that wrought suffering here, not by cause nor reason. They told me it's not about fault, it's about the aftermath, and that ultimately Eric was one who should have held himself accountable. He suddenly looks up and glares at the quiet garden around us. I tense with her. I was so caught up in Maja's story that I didn't realize perhaps we're being watched. How could I forget we're sitting right here in the castle tent? For a long moment, Maja sighed. I've taken us down quite a dark road, haven't I? She picks up her teacup again and takes a sip, but doesn't seem too enthused about it. I glanced down at my plate of cookies. My appetite, too, is gone. Well, it was the ambassador's fault because he's an ass. And so they stripped him of his standings and sent him packing. Yes. Sometimes I see him through the eyes of my messenger birds who stand perched on the castle walls. I wish things hadn't ended like this. It didn't have to end this way. So you can offer to help her reunite with him. Or just say, I'm sorry. But there's so much history there. I have to. It doesn't have to. I lean closer to her and lower my voice, hoping it's enough. You can still go see him. I admit I've been running into him a few times. I know where he can reliably be found. You're both generous and kind. She shakes her head, however. But that'll just put us both in more danger than before. Trust me, I've thought about it. You won't believe the conspiracy theories that flew around the castle after Maya. Some were very enthusiastic to suggest I was the one who set Eric up to fail, that I cursed him with madness before he left for that town. Why would she? They're lovers. Well, we're lovers. Or that simply being in close proximity with a mage like myself was enough to drive any mind mad. Now that's just dumb. I lean away, appalled. Masha takes a short, sharp breath and shakes her head, and pinches the bridge of her nose. Her smile is visibly forced. They were all quite burned after Nazir shut them down, but those minds, and the ones who see benefit in agreeing with them for perpetuating the rumors, are still very much among us. Still? Oh yes, what's the harmless crime of gossiping compared to your esteemed position and endless wealth? Especially when it's not quite phrased as an accusation. Masha's fingers circles the rim of the teacup restlessly. She's looking past my shoulder, then to the side, as though looking for something. It takes every ounce of self-control in my body to not turn around and follow her gaze. Oh, did I make you paranoid? Sorry. Good old habit. Nobody could hear anything in this garden, but then again, gods know all there is to know. We are dangerously close to the chapel. That we are. So my mind hasn't changed since. They would come and smite me for my doubts, then they would have done it already. She tosses a loose strand of hair over her shoulder and sighs. Thus is the story of the Amaya tragedy. Please bear in mind that only those within the castle know the full details, and those involved, of course. The Inquisitors have ordered that those details be kept from the populace as much as possible. It's hardly a crime if you choose to discuss it with your household, but please try to observe some discretion, only to keep the troublesome individuals off your back. These Inquisitors, you mean? Yes. They assist in investigations around the kingdom. Not the most well-liked people, but the Inquisitors I do know are loyal to their roles and above bribery. They have to be to earn that burden of honor. Makes sense if they're basically investigators. I most certainly hope I'll never have anything to do with them. Though I can't deny that there's a lot of very, very romanticized tales about Novian Inquisitors from Fithris, even a few books. Many of them feature dungeons of questionable purposes. I'm not about to tell Masha that. What kind of dungeons could they mean? I doubt it, unless of course you came here with the express purpose of throwing our entire system of government into the fire. Suddenly, she looks up. This time I hear it. Beating wings, followed by a gust of air. A bird alights on our table. Not Livia's massive raven, surprisingly, but just a tiny nightingale. Its eyes glow blue, however, and know it's one of Masha's spells when it chirps at her. Oh? Is something wrong? Not quite, but something does require my attention, probably as soon as possible. Well, the tea's getting cold anyhow. I don't object to scheduling another tea time with you, though. In fact, if you agree, it might just be the one thing I look forward to for the coming weeks. Absolutely. Masha rises to her feet, but she leans over and kisses me on the cheek. Thank you, my friend, for the gift and for the gift of your company. You're most welcome, Lady Masha. She grins at me, then gathers her dress in one hand and the box with the quill in the other, and strides away. I shake my head, non-urgent my arse, and I feel sorry for whoever she's chasing already. Almost done, I swear. I stay a while longer after Masha says her goodbye. Not to finish up the sweets and tea necessarily, but because the gardens at night feels like it's another world altogether. The glowing lanterns and flowers make it seem more brightly lit than it was in the day, and softer around the edge too. Less of a quiet place to hide, and more of an ephemeral mini-forest waiting for an explorer. I watch moths circle around the gazebo's enchanted lights and remember the chapel that's not too far from here. It made me uneasy the last time I was there with Masha, and honestly, after hearing what Nazir said, implied about the monarch demigod statues, that place isn't any more appealing now. Still, slowly I gather my coat and get up. My feet still remember the way back to it, amazingly enough, or is that something guides me there? But it's not long before the structure and its enormous gates loom over me again. They're open this time, thrown wide, as though somebody has intentionally left them open. I take a deep breath that smells of fragrant wildflowers. I step inside. The four faceless, vaguely angelic stone statues carved into the ceiling are still there, fortunately. I let my eyes trail over the solid structure as moonlight pours through the windows and floods the vast, empty space. That doesn't feel dead. Not at all. Slowly I kneel and press my hands to the cold, dusty stone. Reach out with my senses as I have been taught to. Listen for that thrum of power, not unlike a pulse in the land. I don't doubt what Nazar told me, but to believe it. Like a slumbering beast, so large I can't make out its head or tail or where all the rest of it is, but its presence is heavy and undeniable. So with every moment that passes, my mind tries to convince me there can't possibly be something like this. And here I am, witnessing it, or as much of it as my senses can comprehend, surrounded by it. There's a helpless mounting sense of dread I can't shake, like a rabbit crouching before a troll. No, a dragon. Everything Nazir has told me about the gods and the demigods. You shouldn't be wandering around, you know. Wait, what? Huh? The voice startles me out of it by its sheer suddenness. I roll around, but can see no one at first. Then I see her. Nothing more than a silhouette by the doorway, concealed by the deep, deep shadows. The only thing other than her figure that I can make out is something silvery in her hair, reflecting the moonlight at her back. Trying to see things you shouldn't, asking questions whose answer you know will make you? Just like the one from before. Just what? Heels crack on stone. Stranger approaches, and I stand rooted to my spine, unable to look away. Ambassador? Dun dun dun. Who is this? Who's this strange woman? We will not find out until 3 weeks from now. Towards the end of July. I know who it is, of course. Okay. That's it for the ambassador. That's the spy master. I was hoping we'd have some indication of whether he or Marja is the elder of the two sisters. Oh well, that'll be. Anywho, yeah, that's it for this week, which is good. I've just run out of water, and I think I'm actually going to have dinner. Hopefully next time I will be streaming a little more closer to my usual time. I really wanted to stream today. I didn't want to wait until tomorrow. Yeah, next week will be the night chapter 2, and we will get to see the joust from their point of view. And I hope you have a good week. And hopefully soon the revamp will be out, so I can start streaming that as well. So, yeah. Take care, everyone.